We decided to tackle the problem on two fronts. It was the best idea we could come up with at the time. First thing Friday morning, we would both go into the void and take as many photographs of the entire area as possible. Then I would set up my reel-to-reel tape recorder and microphone, complete with a 4-hour tape. We entered the void that morning and took our shots using 35mm cameras loaded with monochrome Pan-X and infrared film. After completing the task, I set up the tape recorder, switched it on to record, and we left the area. After turning out the lights, we locked the entrance to the void using a chain and padlock. As there were 3 of us in that morning, we all left the projection room area together and locked the main entrance to it on the way out. Now, no one could enter, as we had the only keys. We left the building and went for our usual liquid refreshment consisting of a few beers and something eatable to bring back for lunch. Before heading off to the pub, we both deposited our films with a local photography shop for processing. We were out that day for almost 3 hours. Upon our return, we unlocked the door to the projection room and prepared the machines ready to screen the afternoon matinee. Prior to the public entering, Brian and I unlocked the void door and entered to bring back the tape recorder. The void was normally warm enough to cause sweat beads to run down your face when changing something as simple as a light bulb. But that afternoon, we could feel the coldness in there, and it was like being inside a freezer. We didn't stay too long. We were in and out as fast as possible, closing and padlocking the door behind us. The feeling of fear made sure of that. We started the afternoon movie, and before we could get the chance to play the tape, the manager phoned. He told us he had a reporter in his office and asked if we could come down with the tape recording, which we did. We played the tape and sat in his office listening to the recording for almost 90 minutes. In all that time, all we heard were train horns, traffic, and outside noises. Nothing distinctly spooky was heard. We gave a statement to the reporter and made our way back to the projection room. After a cup of coffee, we started the tape from where we'd switched it off. As the movie was running automatically, we all sat in the anteroom listening and reading newspapers. Nothing much was heard out of the ordinary until halfway through the tape. All our eyes focused on each other as we distinctly heard the sound of footsteps walking along the gantry. The normal outside sounds just faded away into oblivion. Now we were all in agreement. Brian had heard footsteps prior, and his experience now had validity. We contacted the manager to inform what we'd heard on the tape, but it was too late. The reporter had left the building. We weren't too bothered at that stage, for we still had films being processed, and as such, we pondered whether or not they would reveal any more evidence, and so we waited. The chief still didn't believe what had been heard on the tape and dismissed any evidence of ghosts as old wives' tales. Little did he know, but he was going to have his comeuppance later that night, and his witness would be the doorman. After the final screening, when the public had left the building, the chief was standing on the stage waiting for the doorman to finish padlocking the remaining exit doors. As he made his way up to the front stage, they both heard an almighty bang that came from the void area. As both their eyes looked up towards the ceiling, the doorman asked, "What was that?" The chief replied, "I don't know, and I'm not effing staying to find out." Then they both left via the rear stage door hurriedly. So all in all, 2 more witnesses became converts to the supernatural phenomena surrounding the cinema. The following Wednesday, Brian and I were on duty again. We both went to the photography store to collect our photographs. The films did reveal evidence, and we were so happy to have yet more tangible pieces of the puzzle. On the prints, we discovered a large leaping white cat showing on the wall of the Spotlight house, situated in the void. We also had pictures of two people. One was an elderly man dressed in old-fashioned clothes. The other was a young lady, aged about 20 years or so. Neither Brian nor I recognized the people in the photographs, but we weren't going to stop there. We were going to go all the way, and we were going to try and discover as much as possible. We approached as many staff as possible in order to try and identify our ghosts. Nobody recognized the girl, but both Bill and the chief projectionist recognized the elderly man. He was known as Old Patrick, and he was the original chief projectionist when the theatre was known as Black's Regal Cinema. He was responsible for most of the old wiring diagrams found on walls where most of the big switchgear was located. He also played an integral role in getting the cinema off the ground in those very early days. Now, all we had to discover was the theatre's origins and why there was a clash between two spirits in the same atmosphere. We first approached the manager to see if he could shed some light on whom the builders were that first erected the complex. He told us he didn't know. Our next step was to contact the planning office in the local town hall. This paid off. The office still held that information on file, and as such we were told that the original builders merchants were also still in business. We contacted them and explained what we were looking for and if we could visit and view any plans from the original construction. That may still help. We were informed they still had the original ground and building blueprints. After visiting and talking with the general manager at the builder's yard, we were almost finished. We had the footsteps on tape and we had photographs. Local history dictated that Black's Regal Cinema had originally been built on the site of the Olympia Exhibition Hall and Pleasuredome, which stood between 1897 and 1910. Black's Regal Cinema opened on the 28th of March 1932. So, it appears some local historians actually got their facts a little muddled, as prior to that the ground had been an old graveyard, contrary to popular belief. All we had to do now was try and understand the clash of spirits. After talking it over many times, we settled on the following. We knew old Patrick would do no harm to anyone. He was part and parcel of the theatre's history. His presence was merely that of someone who cared about it and how it was being looked after. As for the young lady, we had to view her as some sort of spiritual gatecrasher, an invader, if you like, that Patrick not only disagreed with, but didn't want in his domain. After 3 weeks of constant turmoil and event after event, the whole cinema complex started to calm down. Heard footsteps, the ceiling bangs, the floating colours, the feelings of terror and fear, the icy chill in the building's air, the moans and groans, all disappeared. Perhaps our investigation into this helped Patrick in some way to regain control over his ground, or perhaps two very frightening ghosts found a way to reconcile their differences. We shall never know. Good night, and enjoy the movie.